me get this
There we
straight. I
go.
want to.
We're out live. We are live here at the Front Door Show. How you doing, everybody? We were just tuning in. We do this every day, 8 o'clock. It's a little earlier. I'm here with my good friend Lugo Rosado, DJ Lugo Rosado, obviously. Um, for you guys, as I always make the statement, we've been doing it about 3.5 weeks, and we want everybody to basically join us and it's the questions and so forth that go on, that people, we already got one person because I know we started early, but remember, we record this, and so I want you to introduce yourself, tell them who you are, and anything about you, links and so forth. Please hype it up. Who are
Hey,
you?
hello. Welcome to COVID 2020. COVID-19 2020. My name's DJ Lugo Rosado. I'm here with DJ Prieto, and tell you a little about some of my websites. I got you guys want to visit me, I do have a YouTube channel also, DJ Lugo Rosado, and I also have Master C ANDJ, that's Master Can DJ. And we also have I have some websites. You guys can come and visit DJ Lugo Rosado, 51st Street Music, which is my record label. And we also have the mastercandj.com site also for the group.
Cool. Okay, so first question I ask everybody. When did you start DJing? Or did you start doing something else and then you became a DJ?
No, I went straight. It was at the end of the disco era, 1977. And I was in a grade school. I was in grade school back then. I think it was at 11, 12 years old. I can't remember. But back then they were doing parties. It was, the disco era. So everyone was like into that disco stuff. And so me and my grade school kids, my friends, we would do these rectory parties. And they were at a school that I went to. They had a rectory. I went to a private school, and then we do parties there. Back then they were called basement parties. So the rectory was in a basement, right? So it was a basement party with the strobe lights and the mirror ball, you know, dark pitch black, and we do that. So that's how I started. And a friend of mine's named Tony Sedano. He was his brother came back from the service and brought back these big gigantic speakers because I think back then he went to Japan, and he brought these big ass receivers. It was like about this thick and that wide. It was huge, and these speakers that were very high and big, and I freaked out. And so we started doing these parties with just amazement of that equipment made me get into the music and into sound and speakers and all that stuff. And then my mom, we'd all pitch in. Back then, we were all poor, so we pitch in. One guy had a turntable, one guy had a receiver, one guy had right, and then each DJ brought their little records, whatever collection they had at the time. But that's how we started.
So doing the director, and I'm guessing this is a Catholic school, right? Is that
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
So you said director.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously you gotta have some cool nuns doing allowing you to do this per se.
Yeah, well, it was they seen us. I guess it was our little gathering because it was basically a school gathering, so to
So
speak.
so they probably just didn't make sure the kids stay out of trouble. They keep the one spot.
Right. Well, back then it was the school I went to was in Humboldt Park, and
Ah,
at the time, Humboldt Park was predominantly full of gangs, crimes, violence. So it was a positive thing at the time, for us, and
Mhm.
you know,
Well, that seems to be a very common um, scenario for DJs because it seems like I talked to the guys on the south side, the Blessed Agnes parties, and that's where we talk about the whole thing. And then then it kind of after you graduated, eighth grade, did you continue doing the parties with your friends? Did you continue doing was it still at the directory or did you kind of
no,
moved up to?
I moved up, and then it was funny because where I worked at, there was these two promoters. There was a promoter, and it was called Disco Inferno, and there was a DJ named Julio Morales and Pinky, and they had a van. It was decked out, and they used to do these parties at a place called Northwest Hall on North Avenue and Western. And on the third floor, it was owned by a guy named Monserrate, and he was the guy that would rent out this hall. And back then it was like people were renting halls to do events. We're all teens in high school, and Pinky and Julio were in high school. I guess they went to Clemente, and so everyone was making money, so you can charge an entrance at a hall, and probably charge some drinks prices there too, and but it was exciting. It was an exciting time. And then they used to put up posters where I used to work at. I say, hey man, let me be your roadie. So I used to be a roadie. I used to carry the records and put up the posters, and then I eventually, met some of the key DJs like Kenny, Jamie Jason,
Right.
and Farley, Keith, and all the guys, and Frankie Knuckles. I met them all, and that was, I started from ground zero, and
Well,
worked my way up.
that's usually because Kenny was already established, and I know he was Kenny, and I'll regard to Kenny more so than Farley and stuff like that because Kenny was known in the disco funk scene.
Yeah,
WDAI, obviously. And speaking of Harv, CYC, Harv Roman is online as well. So Harv said
yeah,
hello.
Harv Roman, yes.
So that whole thing about with Kenny, and I have to specifically Kenny because I haven't interviewed Farley yet about his background per se, but I know that was when there was Kenny, then there was somebody else, Farley or Ralphie, or then Scott and Mickey came a little bit afterwards. But I know in the beginning it was Kenny J as they called him back then, and then Pinky, and you have to tell that story about you with Julio, excuse me, Julio and Pinky, because they weren't just little promoters. They did some big things as well, correct?
Huge, yes. They were doing, just like I was doing. They used to do house parties. They weren't doing basement parties. They weren't doing house parties and charging at the entrance. And that's how they got started. And then they went into the halls. After that, they became successful, and they got bigger. And I think Pinky, at that point, had teamed up with Henry Cardenas.
Right.
And then he got this idea. He said, well, let me try to get all these promoters together and call ourselves the Disco All Stars. And it was a collaboration of all these promoters that were doing parties at these halls. And he had Henry. Henry was he was doing the salsa thing, so he got him with this Disco All Star production, and that was before the Lollapalooza. So I mean, they were doing like 5,000 at the Aragon, and for that time, it was huge. Give me a minute. I gotta charge up my dang nabbit. I gotta charge up my computer.
He's looking for his charger.
It's gonna die, man. Hold on.
That would be a first. Hey, if it goes blank, we're still on, so don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Yeah. Okay. We're good.
And,
That's a good one.
That's a good. I, I, so since he was doing all this and you being the roadie, um, were you like the opening DJs for these Aragon parties? When did they start saying, okay, you know what, Lugo, DJ? Where
No,
did that
man,
come in?
that took years. That took years.
Okay,
That took years. And
okay.
I would cut school at one point to even go by this guy's Julio's house, and even Sly had the 12s, and I would go practice, and that was our thing back then. We'd go practice on and you know better our skills on blending and mixing.
Right.
It was
I
cool
think
back
I think I've been to Pinky's house once when I was young. I was once, and that was before I got to know Henry. And and I think Pinky and I had a conversation. It was about it was during the Disco All Stars and stuff like that. And I forgot what it was. And maybe it had to do with the breakdancing when I was doing the breakdancing aspect. But I think that was our discussion because I know um, Henry was involved with the Aragon as well.
then.
And
Right. Hmm.
so that was and then Henry and Yvonne obviously. But going back to where you now you're being a roadie, but where do you get your DJ skills? What is it where do you
I was just like, I would practice. I would practice with Julio, and then at one point, I got to do some parties at with these guys, and I do the opening set,
okay?
uh, you know, when nobody was there, and then at a point, I would DJ with Kenny, and Kenny at a point was DJing at a place in Logan Square called Zach's, and you know, going back to that, wait, oh yeah, yeah, we were no before that we started doing parties at a place called El Mirador, and
Oh yes.
that was on North and Pulaski, and I used to DJ as a guest at a place, another teen club called Janelle's, and the owner for that was Al Cisneros, and he would give all these DJs a chance to DJ, and even the dancers, man. It was a place to showcase your talent, man. It was an opportunity that I don't even see happening now. With the teens. The teens are lost, man. They don't have that um, resource to showcase. No, I mean,
well
now you have
well
them doing the
that
TikTok.
well the I think what kind of switched over and just to change just to let you know is that and because I'm involved in the salsa scene. You see a lot more teams when it comes to bachata, salsa teams and stuff like that. That's where it kind of went. Whereas before, you're talking about your time was dance groups doing freestyle and stuff like that, doing the freestyle dancing. Hence the
Right.
Gorditos and Portates, Bajapantes, and all the All Stars, all those guys. And I remember that because I went to the Mirador and I used to go there. And um, I decided to start a group, my own. If anybody
Oh
knows the
yeah, yeah, cool.
backstory about that, but it wasn't breakdancing at the time. It was four
Hmm.
people we used to hang out with. Zarina, I don't know if you remember Zarina, big tall Zarina. There was a guy named Frank, Maria, Little Maria, and me. We came up with this group called Soul Sonic Force because we thought we could like, hey, let's create a group like the Litos and Imported Taste. And we were from the south side, we were from the north side. And when you went to the north, it was intimidating because all the dance groups, they had all the routines, they had all, and I remember Emirador a lot because that was kind of my first North Side Teen Club. I remember that. Then Janelle's happened after that. It was kind of, or it kind of transitioned, it morphed into, going to Janelle's, the first Janelle's on Kedzie and Irving Park. That's the one. But I remember that. And you were then at Mirador DJing opening, right, for Kenny, and then
No,
you followed Kenny.
that was actually my we at that point Kenny and Julio got teamed up together, and they started promoting, and they got the venue because a buddy of mine's like I told you, that I had went to grade school. His dad had this place called El Mirador. I say, hey man, why don't you let us do some parties here? And I went over there with Kenny and Julio, and we started doing parties there. It was cool.
So you're responsible, okay, for a Mirador. Got it. Hey, see, good information. I didn't know that. So then
That
you
was
said you went
my
to
that
Zach's
was my
afterwards with Kenny?
Yeah, well, Kenny was making money, and he was doing 2 or 3 parties. So while he was DJing at Zach's, that was his residency. He needed somebody to alternate from. He needed a backup DJ. I was his backup DJ at the age of 16, DJing at a 21 and over club.
Well, and Zach's, where was it Zach's exactly? Where was the location of Zach's?
That was on Kedzie and off the Logan Boulevard. I forgot
Uh,
the cross street, but it's now a clinic. It's a
okay,
clinic now.
I remember vaguely that. I think I've been in there twice or 3 times, but it was mostly because I was teen. I was too young to be in there. And, as long as you dress nice, you were able to get in places back then. So, but you're DJing still disco and funk and dance music, right? This is what
Oh
you're.
yeah, yeah. Disco and funk at that time. That was happening. Um, house music. House music came later.
Right, right, right.
That was the early '80s. House came in like '84, '83. It started to get happening, and then at '85, everyone started making music.
Correct.
Everyone, the drum machine, the Roland 909, 727, and that all came out, the electronic drum machine. And at that time, like they came out with these, we'd buy these beat tracks. I don't know if you remember those beat tracks, Mix Your Own Stars. And they would be simple beat tracks, and we play them along with the songs, like 117. And, at one point that, these DJs said, well, why don't I make my own beat track? And then it evolved, and they started making tracks, music. And they had a outlet, which was Larry Sherman. And Larry Sherman had a pressing plant at the time up by, what's that area? Where Maynard Daly used to live. What's that called?
In Bridgeville?
Ridgeview, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a house sitting, I think 31st around there.
Okay.
And and so these guys came out with 4 tracks, and they go sell it to Larry, and Larry would press it up, and it was just. And then I think my first opportunity was working with little Jesse Velez. Little Jesse Velez, he had his, I came from a single parent household, but Jesse's family was very supportive, and he was like he reminded me. I was like old already, like 15. I was in.
Oh, you were real old.
Yeah, he was old back then, and so he was like 11. He was like 11, 12. So he
Right.
sort of reminded me when I first started out. So I hung out with him, like as a mentor. And
Okay.
so he wanted to come out with the track, and so he got his little drum machine and everything like that. And so that's why I got my first opportunity to work in the studio with him. And we worked out in Evanston at a place called Soto Sound Studios. And quite a few legendary people came out of there. And he came out with that song, man. At the time, the Colitos was happening, and he came out with Girls Out on the Floor, Shake That Colito, you know what I mean? And it was a hit. Everyone loved it.
Well, I mean, I think you had the backing of the dancers, and so that was very relatable in the nightclubs. So
Yeah.
you had a song that specifically you're playing at to the crowd that's there, and it's a record actually. So obviously that was a big plus, because the Colitos, and at the time I think the Colitos were probably the most biggest group, and I don't mean by number wise, I mean more in the sense of that was like the first thing out of somebody's mouth. Colitos, and then Imported Taste and All Stars, or it was always the Colito. It was just easily recognized, and I think because the namesake Colito was also like Colitos, ha ha ha. It was just something that was very marketable, and catchy, and stuff like that. So hence when the song, um, rest in peace, when Jesse came out with his song, and that phrase came out, Colito, it was like boom, and it really, and I remember the explosion. It was just like every I guess every DJ and everybody that had a turntable, they went out and bought that record. That was like a lot of people's first records, in the sense of a Chicago track, and that was what cut. So you're doing studio work. You said it's the first time in the studio.
Yeah, first time. It was cool, and it was an opportunity that most people wouldn't have, because let's face it, man. I grew up in the hood, Humble Park, and who do I know? I got surrounded with gangs and just bad vibes all around, and so I try to align myself with good people and people that were doing stuff at the time. But yeah, it turned out good, and I kept on DJing at one point. And my friend Jesse, um, he was the 12-inch buyer at a record store called Loop Records, and he'd be in the lakefront, and then at the time, we'd all hang out. I was a como se dice in español, in Spanish it's called playero. I was a playero. I was a beach bum. I was living at home. I ride my bike to the beach. Fun times, young. eh, You know, um, and so I we'd all hang out on Fullerton Beach. Remember those days?
Oh yeah, oh
The
yeah.
Colitos, all the dance groups would be out there and dancing and playing their music. And then sometimes at night after that, you see them at the club, at the teen club,
Yep, yep.
in the daytime at the beach, at the nighttime at the teen club, at Janelle's or Mirador.
The good old days. You're making me jealous right now.
Yeah. Oh, and then
uh,
that's why I met Jesse and Liz. Liz used to be out there also suntanning.
right, right.
So me and Liz, we used to, you
Liz
know,
who? So to
Liz
clarify,
Torres, Liz Torres.
okay,
Liz Torres, we used to battle on who would get the darkest tan at the time. It was like that's when it was a little bit safer to get a tan, not like now. But and then I guess Jesse had met Liz in the beach too, and they became boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. And like I said, he worked at the record store, and he decided to come out and do I think it was like 1985 at that time, and then he decided to come out with a track with Liz,
right.
and due to another DJ, his name was Carl Bias, and they came out with a song named "No More Mind Games," and after that they started touring, and Jesse said, "Hey man, why don't you come and join the group?" I used to go in the studio and work with them too, and it was at a place called Chicago Recording Company. And that was another opportunity that I got to hang out and learn the board. And, they had a state of the art mixing board called the SSL. And they also had another one called the Neve. These are like, it was amazing, man. This is like the Neve was like flying faders, and the faders would move up. You'd set them. Anyway, long story short, I started touring with them. They bring me along to the shows, but uh, going back a little bit in time, uh, going back like a few years, me and little Jesse Velez would go to these seminars in New York. They were called the New Music Seminar,
Mhm.
and it was I think it was it was brought done by a guy named, oh my god, he owned Tommy Boy Records. Anyway, I think it was Tom Silverman, and he basically did these seminars, and it was amazing because they had all these electro funk guys and rappers and DJs from New York all over the world. And at that time in the 80s, it was like a revolution of music, man. It was like, you had no, you didn't have freestyle. You had electro funk, you had um alternative, you know. Alternative was huge. Punk, punk music or funk. Um and so I told Jesse, man, you got to come down to the seminar because it's happening. Because me and little Jesse Velez used to go there. Bro, you got to come down. He used to work at the record store. And he says, I'll come down. He came down and I told him, you got to check out this club. This club is the baddest club in the world. And it was called the Paradise Garage. And he went there and he looked, he stood at amazed. He goes, man, this is bad. Had the baddest sound, the baddest lights, the baddest DJ. I was, and 2 years later, Liz and Jesse are performing there at this place called the Paradise Garage. It's crazy. And
And,
I'm,
and
I started touring with them too. We started.
nice. And I was gonna say, and you were there too. But were you like one of their DJ, or were you
No, I was playing.
just
I was one of the band members. I was like playing keys, playing
okay?
keyboards, and they had a live band. They had a live drummer who was
Okay.
Joe Pusateri. And so we trade off. Jesse would trade off. He was the manager of the group, and he um, he started off with Carl, and then he had Edward Crosby, who was also a DJ, and then had me, and then after that, he'd have Liz's brothers, um, and we'd alternate, which is cool because we all had a chance to travel and you know.
So I missed the part where you have piano training. What's up with that?
What do you mean?
Yeah, because you said you're playing piano. So
Yeah,
what
but
what what when did you
yeah.
when did you learn piano in this
Oh,
in the in this mix?
yeah. Well, we had like it was basic basic keyboards. It was just like we'd all learn the parts and play them.
Okay, so I mean you played on the you play by
Like
ear.
on a keyboard,
So,
yeah, on a keytar.
okay,
It would be on a keytar.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but it was the you didn't have any professional training on that. You played by ear because
Yeah, just like everything else, just like
right.
DJing. There, back then, there was no standard on how they didn't have school or classes in college like now on how to DJ, you know.
Right.
So back then, you know, you had to DIY, do it yourself,
Lugo, and don't take me wrong, but on that because I did the same thing. Trust me. But I'm just saying for people that are watching and they have no clue. That's why I'm asking. I'm asking the question
Yeah,
because
sometimes it's just DIY, and even our drummer never had any technical training. He says, hey man, and he used to do commercials for United and everything, work in the studio. I said, how'd you learn? He goes, man, I just practice. I learned.
right. So I mean, because obviously you have to have the ear for the music, and I'm sure that helps a lot. As a DJ, that's that helps a lot. So you now you're doing studio work, you're doing playing music, and that always also helps. And then you're DJing and you're touring with Liz. Where do you go from this? Where do you go after 84, 85? What happens with you?
I think it goes all the way. I go to all the way to like 90s. And then the band just broke up. I think Liz and Jesse broke up, and we all went our ways. But moving forward, a decade, like in 20, what was it, 20 something, 2006, I call up I call up Jesse and Liz, and I would keep in touch with each and one of them. Each one of them I would keep in touch with, and because they were my friends, even though they broke up. But and I would see they had the internet at the time, the World Wide Web, and they had all this thing called the YouTube. So everyone is making comments about their music from the past. I'm like, wow. I told Jesse, hey man, check this out, dude. Bro, look at all the comments they're saying about your music. Man, you guys are the legends. There's no music like the original house music like you guys. And they're like making all these great comments, thumbs up. I'm like, wow, we got to come back. There's a new generation that needs to hear your music, and we need to make some new music. So we banded together and started a record label and started making some more new music.
All right. So you're talking 96 now, right?
No, no. Well, I think in the 90s we disbanded, but we came back like in 2006. So there was that big gap where we all had to get like jobs.
So, but were you still,
Like 9 to 5s, stuff we don't want to do, but we have to do.
right. But I mean, are you still DJing any nightclubs? Are you still with that 10-year gap? Are
Yeah,
you
yeah. I started, I worked at Disco City, and that's how I met you. Remember?
okay? Well, no. Back it up. Back it up. Back it up. I met you before that. I mean, you obviously. So I was talking to Luis Rolling Rivera was on the interview, and you were working with Lewis at the warehouse.
Well, at the warehouse, that's right.
And but you were playing Latin music. You weren't
Right.
playing, yeah, you were playing Latin music. So that I guess that's where I'm going to kind of, where does the dance and the disco and Latin music, where does that split, or
So
where, how,
with that gap where we had to get the jobs,
okay,
I worked at a record store in Logan
okay,
Square, and there was a guy who was manager. He was the manager there. His name was Ralph Cardona, and he was the manager at the store. And I walked in because I used to, you know, buy my salsa records there, albums, because I would do weddings and parties like that. And they'd want to hear some salsa, merengue, so I had to buy these records too, salsa records. It wasn't just
records or CDs? It was records at the time, right?
records, yeah, records,
Okay,
albums. They didn't have no
okay.
12-inch vinyl for salsa. It was just albums. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
You probably get one or two good songs on the album, $8.99. But yeah, and I walked in there one day. He says, "Hey, you want to work here?" And I said, "Yeah." So I got my first job. I was working at a record store. That's cool, and eventually, throughout the years, I became a record buyer. I started buying 12-inch. I told Felix, "Hey, man, um, Felix Cardona was the owner," and I told him, "Hey, man, why don't we do like a little section for the DJs up here in Logan Square? Everyone's going downtown, and I can hit the Latin market. You got Latinos coming here already, so let's do it up here." And I started selling 12 inches freestyle, the Cynthias. I started selling a lot of underground stuff from New York. Set It Off, Straff, Nitro Deluxe. It was Cynthia. All these giggles. Man, I sold all that stuff. Early freestyle, I was selling it there to George DeMons and all that stuff. And then we started doing house music. House music came huge, and we used to buy from this guy named Benji, and he was like a distributor for all the house music in Chicago. It's called Quantum Records or Quantum Distributors, and
Correct, correct.
so we started buying house music, and it was cool, man, because the Latinos were into the house, and it was a good time, man, because I was like, I was doing that, and I was having access to the vinyl, you know.
Your ex co-worker says hello.
Who's that?
Louis Rivera.
Hey, Louis! That's Louis Roland Rivera.
So I mean, so I'm sure you both been there. Louis was a DJ as well, and you were a DJ as well, right? And Louis was doing the same thing. He was playing same kind of music and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so I'm sure you guys fed off of each other. That I think that works positively for a lot of people when two DJs, because then you guys will talk about music and say, hey, did you hear this? And hey, did hey, thumbs up, and or thumbs down, okay, and I think that's important when it comes to, having that camaraderie with another DJ.
Yeah, it sure was. It was a different time. It's totally different now, it's kind of sad, but I think we got I think we got together more because people were going to record stores, and not only that, if you want a record pool, you'd have like other DJs, and they would go pick up their records, and there was a collaboration. People would get together and commune.
The meeting in the boys' room.
Yeah, right. You know, it was great. You
Right.
can get jobs. Hey, so you'd feed off of other DJs and other DJs. Hey, what are you doing? You DJing? I need a DJ. Why don't you cover for me? Or you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's not like that anymore. It's
Right. Right. I mean, and it was kind of the very close knit as well. And when I mean close knit, meaning that the DJs, there was a respect between all the DJs and stuff like that. And
yeah, there was
and
a respect.
and so who starts DJing first for the warehouse? Because obviously, or should I say, because Benji Espinosa, the quantum distributor, and Julian, I guess that's how the warehouse became to be.
Right.
So is it Louis or you that start?
Oh, that was Lewis. Lewis.
Okay, okay,
So Lewis was I got Lewis a job. I had gotten Lewis a job at Disco City. I told him, hey bro, you want to work here? And so he started working there. I got a few DJs there, a job few that I knew, and he became the salsa. He started buying some salsa, and then he started reporting. And at that point, he was reporting to the I forgot what the name of the magazine was, but I think he at that time the Latin music at the time was booming. The merengue, the salsa, all that stuff from RMM Records. It was booming. Um, all that Mark Anthony in India. It was like a resurgence of the salsa. Um, and so Lewis was, I guess, approached by Julian. They wanted to do something with the Latin market, and Lewis asked me if I wanted to do it with him. I said, yeah, it was fun. So we did it, and we'd go every week, and we play on CDs. At the time, they had came out with the new Pioneer CDJ. I think it was a 900 or
502.
500. Yes, yes, they were monsters. And so I had bought a pair, uh, and he said, "Why don't you do it with me? You got the CDJs," and that's how it normally is. Like in the beginning, like I said, we do parties, and everyone would bring their. One guy had the turntables, one guy had the mixer. Well, I had the CDJs, so I brought the CDJs. You know what I mean? And it was cool. I helped him out. I had a good time, and we had a great time. It was nice, and
Well,
we did really well
that
with the Latin market.
well, that's how I kind of met you because of that fact. Because I just came out with my mixtape. That was that first mixtape, and I didn't know anything about the Latin market per se. And everybody knows that when I made this mixtape, it was not, yeah, no clue, but I did it because I liked salsa merengue. I liked listening to it, and I bought it. I never went to Disco City, believe it or not, to buy music. I would get it from here, there, and stuff like that. And but I knew who Mark Anthony was, and I knew who La India was just because of songs and Frankie Reese and all the classic stuff. And then I made the mixtape, and at the time, Mario Reyes was dating my sister,
Wow.
and I was invited by Mario Reyes to go to the warehouse. And he says, "Oh, by the way, there's a Latin room at the warehouse." And I go, "Latin room in the warehouse? What?" Because I knew all the house scene and stuff like that. So obviously, me being new in the Latin market was like, okay, let me see who's the DJs. Not or kind of like, let me see if they compare to me. That was kind of what I was thinking. So I go out there, and it's you and Lewis together, and I remember it. I remember that was, and I would be like, oh, okay. And obviously, and merengue was really big at that time.
He was,
That
yeah, yeah.
merengue was big. So it was like merengue, 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 and then two salsa, merengue, merengue, and then two salsa. That was kind of the thing. And I remember staying up there, for a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, and then I have to follow my sister, make sure she's okay and stuff like that. And then act like the big brother that I am. And I just remember, and then I remember him mentioning, "Oh yeah, I work at Disco City," and obviously I did the whole, maybe I can sell my mixtapes there. That was the reason why.
That's good. You're an early entrepreneur, man. So
So and then I think that's how we officially met, because obviously the music's playing and stuff like that, and then you say hello to somebody in the club. You don't really meet him. You're saying hello to a lot of people in the place.
right.
And I think at Disco City is when I officially met you and said, "Hi, I'm DJ Prieto. I'm or DJ El Prieto at the time," and that's when I officially met you the first
Right.
time at Disco City and stuff like that. So you're DJing at the warehouse. You're working at Disco City.
At the second warehouse. There's the original warehouse is with Frankie Knuckles. The second warehouse was with Julian, Joe Smooth,
Mike,
and Ricky
Mike
Jones,
Dunn.
Benji, right? Yeah.
Yeah. That was
That was on Randolph and Halsted.
correct. Correct.
Right. That's the second warehouse. Okay,
Right.
we're talking about. Okay.
So you're like I said, you're DJing for the warehouse, and you're working at Disco City. Where does that take you as far as
No, I flew for quite a long time in the Latin scene. I left the house music for a bit,
okay?
and I went back to my roots, and got to get the knowledge of just the whole music scene and the percussions, and I met great musicians at the time. There's like you know I met I worked uh alongside another co-worker. His name was Carlos Garcia, and he was a percussionist who's a timbale player, and he was in the group called Yambo, and I learned a lot, man. Just the aspect of percussion and the instruments through him, and the music end of it with what do you call it? Disco City and Felix Cardona. I learned that whole music, you know, you name it, from danza, the boleros, and the whole concept of it. So I worked retail in English, and then I also did the salsa and all the Latin market with Disco City. So it was great. I learned a lot about music in general.
Right.
I didn't have to go to school. In other words, I learned. I learned it firsthand, and grassroots. So
So you become mostly salsa DJ, right? That's where you
at the
basically.
time, yeah, because the dance scene kind of died out. I went into techno, and the techno music was like 150 beats per minute. So it was like, what was that one song? Speed Racer. Remember Speed Racer?
Uh,
It was like
X Factor. Yes, yes,
X Factor.
yes. I know.
It was all fast, and I said, no, this is not my style. So I went to the Latin. I went to the Latin scene, and it was happening, man. We met some
So
great
where
musicians.
were you DJing at when you were doing the Latin DJ? Where were you DJing at? Because now you're over 21. Obviously,
Right.
you're
So, Felix had at the time Logan Square had a place called Tanya's, and
okay.
it was right next to McDonald's. And so at the time, I think Felix had who was the owner of Disco City, had bought the property next to it, the store, and they wanted to open up a nightclub, and it was called Cat's Cafe. And
I
I ended up DJing there at
I remember. I remember. Yes.
with the Latin scene, and then after that, um, he bought another club. He bought another club, and it was further north of the store, and it was called the Cadron.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the Cadron? The
Yep.
Cadron, and it was owned by some Polish people, and he bought it from them, and the music scene was hot. The Latin scene was hot at that time.
Right.
Mark Anthony, all these everything on RMM Records, and some of the old Fania was like, resurgence of that, and new artists were coming out. So salsa, merengue, bachata, it was all coming out, and he had this club called the Cadron. He used to bring all these artists.
And a famous artist, the first time in Chicago, performed there, right?
Who was that? Mark Anthony.
Yep.
You
Mark Anthony.
remember that show?
Yep.
You remember that show? What happened in the show?
I don't remember. I just remember there weren't a lot of people.
Uh,
There weren't a lot of. I mean, in a sense of obviously compared to what because nobody knew who Mark Anthony was. I just remember, but I don't remember what. So tell me what happened in the show.
Mark, I think Carlos. I think it was Carlos Garcia brought him, and Mark was new. He was new. He brought him down there to perform. He was the new artist on RMM Records, and he talked about it in an interview one time. And they said, "What was your worst experience?" So, back then it was like we were all scared of AIDS. AIDS was like, and it was something we didn't know.
Oh, you
Sort of,
mean like the pandemic right now?
it was a
Yeah,
pandemic. Yeah.
right.
So, everyone was kind of scared of AIDS and everything like that. They didn't know there was no cure for it at the time, and so he's on stage, and this girl jumps on the stage, and she bites him right here on the stage, and she she leaves a beat her teeth marks. He was furious, man, and he mentioned that in an interview, and that happened there at the Cadron.
Oh wow.
Yeah, cool story, man.
That's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy that someone biting. biting somebody.
Yeah, well, and you freak out like the hell, man. You don't know who this. You got
Well,
saliva going on there,
I would think that someone's going to kiss him, not bite
right?
him.
No, she's like, "Arr!" So, yeah, that happened there.
Wow, I don't, like I said, it's been so long, it's a blur on a lot of things and stuff
That was
like
a
that.
cool story, man.
So were you DJing at Cane Run as well? Were
Yeah.
you, yeah,
I
so
was
you were,
DJing there. I play in between the acts. You know.
okay. So I remember, Felix, he had Cage Run. It was very successful, and I remember that was a very successful salsa scene and live music scene. I should say the live music scene. He would have local bands too, as well, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
local
He would have,
bands too. Yeah.
and obviously Carlos Garcia was responsible for bringing in. I guess he was the music director. Is that kind of how that worked,
Yeah,
for
something
the?
like that. Yeah, he had a agency called Talento Total.
Okay, all right, dude. Good to know. See, so yeah, so I know, and then because obviously because you guys worked off the record store, you were in the industry of the Latin music per se.
Right.
So then you had, Elena Echeverria from RMM Records that was here as well. So
Yes.
it was the whole connection where everybody was connecting and stuff like that. Um, but in the Latin scene, as we know, if something's really good, then somebody else wants to do something better. It's always the case, right? So then there was Henry Cardenas had stuff that he was doing as well. So I remember at that time there was Henry and Felix kind of doing competition, right? Because
Yeah, I
that was
think Henry had what? He had Tropicana. He had Tropicana, right? Or
right. He had Tropicana, right? He had
Tropicana.
Tropicana, right? But I mean, so he was working with Ruben Pasmino, and and it was Ruben actually had Tropicana. But I know they would do events every so often at the Aragon, so they would do these Meningasos and these big
Yeah, major
events,
events. Yeah, major events. Yeah, and those are.
yeah,
That was, he went back. He started doing big concerts at the Aragon again too. That was really cool. Um,
right. So that pushed the salsa scene, and I say the salsa scene, the tropical scene, even that much bigger. It became like a huge thing. Um, in that time, I was working over there at Tropicana, but I was doing Tuesday night boxing at the time, if you remember that.
yeah, yeah.
And then Ruben had opened Salcedo's
Right.
Infinity
Salceros.
right at the time. And then Cadron changed names after that, correct?
Yeah, they changed it after he bought it from the Polish people because they didn't want to sell it to him. He eventually bought it and then he changed the name to Mambo's, Club Mambo's. And yeah, it was still he was still doing the same thing and but it was actually his club after that point.
Right. So you're big on the salsa scene now. You're doing a lot. You're doing these basically DJing for a lot of the concerts. Uh, where do you go from that point? You're now 97, 98 ish. I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. And so that kind of lingered off, um I got married and then I had to get a real job, I had a kid, 9 to 5,
Okay.
because I wasn't, kind of like wanted to change, because I've been doing this all my life, so I wanted to but then I came back and I'm back in the scene, it's just like something you can't quit, I've lived the whole life doing this and I can't see myself doing anything else. So
Is it like the Al Pacino was saying? I try to get away, but they keep bringing me back. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but when you come back from the break, I guess, getting married and stuff like that, and I knew you back then. You were doing both Latin and house, right? You were doing kind of a combination of both.
No, not well. Yeah, yeah. I used to do whenever I could get play some house in between, but predominantly, the Latin market, man, they just wanted to hear salsa, merengue, bachata. You know what I mean? At
Okay,
that time, and I would try to do some house sets, but they weren't really feeling it. They were like, it's sort of like right now, everyone's into salsa, merengue, bachata, reggaeton. So they weren't really feeling it. But I try to. I remember one time India came and she was performing, and I went backstage. Hey, India, I want to play some house music that you sang. And I asked her, would that be okay? She goes, yeah, go ahead. And then she came out with this record with her ex-husband. It was called uh what was the name of the album? New Yorican Soul.
hmm
And she did this song called Runaway. Huge. It was an old disco record, and she redid it on a house beat, and it was really good. And I said, man, I want to play it, and people were jamming to it. I played it at the K-Dron. She loved it. But whenever I could at the time, I'd sneak in some house, stuff they knew, you know.
right.
I couldn't go too deep on them. They wouldn't understand.
So, but you have this background with studio. Do you go anywhere with the studio aspect of it because you did your studio work? Did you do anything?
Well, after that, remember everything went digital at that point. Everyone started the software, everything that we used to go spend money in the studio per hour to do recordings. You can now do it on a laptop at a point. At this point, it was like what year was it on a two? I don't know. I think I started in the late 1900s, early 2000s, around there.
Okay.
I got a laptop. I didn't have a Mac. I had a PC, man. So I was like trying to learn this software stuff and on a PC, and I think I started off with I don't know, it was Pro Tools, or I forgot the other one.
I,
But yeah,
I
I
was
started.
I was using deck.
Wow, wow. So I was like learning everything. It was a whole new thing because I was learning how to work a computer.
Okay.
Well, this is great because I don't have to spend studio time. I could do it in my house. DIY, it's like, once again, DIY, do it yourself.
Right.
You learn how to do it, and practice, and you become good at it. So I started accumulating my stuff, studio gear now, because as a DJ, you get your gear, and so I started buying more studio equipment and added on little by little, as it goes, poquito poquito. So it was like and to this day, I try to buy my little gear here and there once in a while, upgrade.
So have you produced any music during the course of that doing the studio work and doing your because I thought you worked a little bit with Georgie for a bit.
Georgie Porgy?
Yeah.
Georgie Porgy. Well, Georgie Porgy, man. I know Georgie through high school. Me and Georgie went to the same high school, Lang Tech. And we touched base again because he had a record label called Music Plant.
hmm
And we're good friends. Great guy, real cool. Always been cool with me, down to earth. And he was coming out with house music. And at that time, he was with this other DJ named Terry Hunter, and they had a place up on Elston, by Elston, around there. And was it by Kimbo,
Yeah, Kimball, right off the expressway.
off the expressway,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I do.
And so They had a at that time I had got another guy a job at Disco City. His name was Eddie E Mosquito Cruz. So Eddie, Eddie was, very charismatic,
No.
very charismatic, and so he was he got to work with Georgie, and Georgie gave him a job, and so I would he would say, "Come on, man, why don't you come over here?" And I'm working over here, and I'd go over there. That was my introduction and to go in see Georgie because I haven't seen Georgie for a long time, and yeah, it was great, man. I got to travel to the one time we went to me and Eddie Mosquito. We went to seminar they had in Miami. What is that called? Winter Music Conference.
Mhm.
Winter Music Conference, and Georgia was performing out there. It was cool, man. Yeah,
I was there too.
yeah.
I was
Cool.
there. I was there at all the only one I didn't go was the New York one. That was the only one because I wasn't into I didn't get into the music that I was in the music scene per se. But it was the Winter Music Cup for 13 years, I think. For 13 years I was there.
Show you this picture. Hey, let me show you this picture, man. This is a picture we took. Me, little Jesse Velez. You know those guys?
I see Jesse.
This is
Uh,
it's little Jesse Velez. That's me.
right.
That's
I didn't recognize you. Sorry.
yeah. No, I have my Puerto Rican afro here. You know what I mean? I had a little Brillo pad going on there, man. That's African Bimbada,
Oh wow.
DJ Red Alert. That's Charlie Chase. That's Cool Herc.
Oh wow.
Yeah, these were the iconic guys back in the days.
Wow. That was New York City of all New York City, right?
Yeah, that was yeah, so that in that picture Jesse was little Jesse was like I was with Big Jesse, but just Jesse Jones, and little Jesse Velez is coming up to me. He goes, hey man, bro, come on, man. I want you to meet African Mabata, DJ Red Alert, man. Come on. And we're like, oh man, you don't know those guys. He goes, no, man, come on, man, come on. I want to take over. I want to show you. He's like, little Jesse Velez, like, he was very short,
Yeah, I
And
remember.
he was like, come on, man. I ain't lying, bro. Come on. So we go. Well, I went over there and he was in line. He was telling me the truth.
uh, what talent did if that guy was still alive? That
That guy
talent.
would have been huge.
Yep.
He would have
Yeah.
been he would have been like the Daddy Yankee, man. He would have been
Yep. Agree. A
because he was
thousand
doing
percent.
hip hop. He started doing hip hop, at one point, And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. So I mean, in your DJ career, what would you consider your highlight? Where was your highlight of your career? If you were to one instance, besides the Mark Anthony biting on the cheek thing, I don't want. What would be your highlight of your career?
My highlight
Yeah. Your
of my
travels, your travels, the wow factor.
wow, there's like it's so hard to say because each um part of my life there was always a peak. So you know, just getting to work with people in each part of my life was the best part. But traveling with the band and with Liz, and that was the ultimate. That was like global. I was like a global DJ, and I was getting paid big money and traveling around the world, and it was cool, man.
Well,
It's just
I mean that I envy you because a lot of DJs don't get to do that, So I'm
man, I
sure.
got to see different things, different clubs, different DJs. It was it was amazing, I was like, I said, wait a minute. Hmm. I stopped DJing for a while, and I started. I said, forget DJ, man. I ain't around here. Because everyone's doing the same thing, at the same clubs. I'm like, nah, man, I'm gonna tour the guys and the band and make some money and see the world. It was great.
Good for you. Um, now that we're in this state, pandemic state, where do you see yourself going after this? Is this because you're obviously you're still working, right? You're essential
Yeah,
worker. Yeah,
yeah.
so, but what do you think, and in your opinion, what do you think that's going to do with the industry now?
It's a funny thing. We were the other day I was like given a somebody reached out to me in LinkedIn and they were asking me a question. What do you think is going to happen with the some of these promoters and what is the new normal? What they're going to do? How these concert promoters are going to make money? They're used to making like Lollapalooza. They used to cram them in there, right? Not going to happen. So 6 feet apart, right? Um, I think what I think is probably going to happen is like when you watch the boxing matches, was it pay-per-view,
Hmm.
right? Pay-per-view parties. I don't know. You watch your parties. I think it'd be a bigger, broader audience. You can reach. Let's say, for instance, you want to go to Lollapalooza, right? You can't go, or you don't want to go, right? Because you're scared. Well, you can have your own Lollapalooza party at your house, right? Pay-per-view, like just like the boxing matches. Oh,
Like the theaters are doing now, the theaters. They're selling them now, the movies and stuff like that. It's not like you can go to the theater anymore.
right.
It's paid.
But I think more of like back in the days, it was like pay-per-view. When you want a
Right.
boxing match, you pay like $25 or something like that. But imagine that. I think that might be the ticket.
Well, I would agree with you with the boxing match because you're dealing with two people and you can box. In the dance scene or the industry scene, this is a contact, or should I say, it's a that this industry is built on connection. It's built on two people dancing with each other, or it's that camaraderie with all the guys and all the girls and stuff like that. This is all built into this industry. So I think in some cases, yeah, the pay-per-view per se, or Zoom or whatever it is, but I think human nature, we need to be close to each other. That's the which call, and I think obviously once the vaccine is created, that will change everything. Just like AIDS, what you said about AIDS. Once that was created, then a lot of things will change. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. I agree because I think the fear in everyone is there, and California right now we're in May, and they're talking about not going back to normal until August. They just announced it today in Chicago that California, the state of California, is not going to open up um, till August, and we're looking. The governor of Illinois right now, we're May 12th, and they're saying maybe maybe June 15th, and so and they're doing this in stages. So who knows? You
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I know there's the um, and one of my DJs that I interviewed, his name is Louis, um, not Louis Roland Rivera, Louis Alberto. He was COVID positive, and I know he was already on Telemundo. And he has his things about the COVID and stuff like that. Couple things that I think what's going to happen as well, and I think this is an experience that I guess, and I mean, I like to use I like to use scenarios. You go out in the dark, right? In a dark alley, and you're told to be cautious, right? So we've all gone through that route in the dark alley, and we're cautious, right? We're looking left, we're looking right.
Right.
But the moment that it affects you personally, meaning that you get robbed or you get shot or something like that, now you have a whole different outlook. So I think people that are going through this pandemic, if they have, like, I personally don't have someone that was COVID. I didn't come up with COVID. So I have a different outlook at what this pandemic is. But if I had COVID, a family member died or somebody close to me died, I have a total different outlook of this pandemic and stuff like that. And I think that's what you're going to see once things start opening up. You're going to have the people who it hasn't affected directly. They're going to look at it differently, just like you've been told all your life, hey, secondhand smoking kills you. But did that stop people from going into a nightclub? No, they still went. You had your decision to go and stuff like that. You took the risk. And I think that's where people will take a risk. But people who are COVID positive, people who have parents and or family members, they look at it as like, nope, nope, no, thank you. So I think that's what you're going to see, kind of that split between people saying yes or no. They're going to be like, and it's, and I think it's going to take time. I think it's going to be a psychological aspect of it, just like we talked about. You said the AIDS aspect of it. Once everybody realized that, you know what, there's a vaccine. Okay, now we can get back to the norm. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure the time frame, but I think it's right to be cautious. I think that's the way to go about it. I don't know if May 15th, June 15th, July 15th, August, who knows which card. I think they don't know, because then that's why they're going to see how many people they can open up at, July. And if everything is cool, then they'll let it ease up more until there's no more, or says no more in the sense of serious deaths, because that's what everybody's afraid of.
I agree. Yeah. So let's see what happens. Only time will tell.
All right. Well, the hour's gone. Any last words to everybody watching? Quite a few people,
Well, last words from me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there's one proverb. It's an African proverb that I like to quote. It's very good. It's called, well, the African proverb is basically, the key to the future is knowledge of your past. So if there's any advice I can give to anybody wanting to start a DJ business or in music, know your past. It's very, very important.
And get on the floor and move that culito.
And move that culito.
All right.
Don't forget to check me out on Master CNJ, mastercandj.com. I got a record label called 51st Street Music Chicago with a great vocalist named Reginald Hughes, who has a huge blues background. He sings like Sylvester, he sings like Daryl Pandy, and he sings like Sylvester, Daryl Pandy,
So
and
make sure you can put
together.
the links. You can put the links on the bottom of this interview as well.
Okay,
So
cool.
Make sure you put all that. Make sure you put all that as well and stuff like that.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you. That's the front door. Don't go anywhere, Lugo. Thank you very much, guys. That's the front door show. Appreciate it very much, and we'll be back. And don't forget, we do this every day at 8 o'clock.
Peace
Thank
out.
you, Lugo.
You're welcome.